So we've got some interesting development regarding Joe Biden and the state of the filibuster. Take a look and then we'll talk about it.
Zach, so aren't you going to have to choose? I know you've been reluctant to do away with the filibuster. Aren't you going to have to choose between preserving the filibuster and advancing your agenda?
Yes, but here's the choice. I don't think you have to eliminate the filibuster. You have to do it what it used to be when I first got to the Senate and back in the old days when you used to be around there. And that is that a filibuster, you had to stand up and command the floor. And you had to keep talking alone. You couldn't call for, no one could say, quorum call. Once you stopped talking, you lost that, and someone could move in and say, I move the question of. So you got to work for the filibuster.
So you're for that reform. You're for bringing back the talking filibuster.
I am. That's what it was supposed to be. Look, I think, don't hold me to the numbers, George, but I think between 1960 and 2000, there were like, I'm making this number up, I don't know. There were like, 50 filibusters. And now they're like 200 since then. Since that
Just put a hold
changed.
on it, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea, it almost is getting to the point where there's, democracy's having a hard time functioning. And so, look, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, George, but I do believe there's enough Republicans over time who are going to have, look,
They haven't had that epiphany you said you were going to see in the campaign.
No, well, I've only been here 6 weeks, pal. Okay, give me a break. Been here 6 weeks. I think the epiphany is going to come between now and 2022. This is there's 78% of the people say they support this program. 52% of Republicans. Let's assume it's off by 15%. You're going to go home and campaign. Republican voters want that $1,500.
So that was really interesting for a plethora of reasons. So first of all, there has been a growing movement, especially as of late, to just outright abolish the filibuster. And my position on that, I don't think it should be abolished, at least not at the moment. I think that reform is definitely needed. So basically, the filibuster, as it used to be, was an actual filibuster, okay? You had to stand up, you had to speak, and you had to speak continuously. You had to actually filibuster. But of course, over time, they changed it to what it is now, and all they have to do is declare, I am filibustering, and then it requires 60 votes. Well, a lot of people have been pushing for it to be abolished, and I honestly think that paired with just the Republicans just being unmovable has prodded the Democrats into the position that it seems like they're going to be taking, which is reforming the filibuster, as Joe Biden just highlighted, back to the original filibuster where you actually had to filibuster, as I stressed before. So this is really good for several reasons. Joe Manchin, if you aren't aware, recently said that he wouldn't support any more legislation unless it was bipartisan. Yes, those words left his mouth. That's something that he actually said. Joe Manchin is insane, but he's Joe Manchin. We know who he is by now. But he said he wouldn't support anything unless they had Republican votes. So nothing is going to get passed unless it has a Republican vote, because the Senate is split 50-50. And one thing that I want to highlight before continuing is that I don't think this gets talked about enough. The fact that the Senate is 50-50 is entirely the fault of the Democrats. It's the fault of it's nobody else's fault. It's their fault. When they were running, they were projected to win the Senate by far more than what they actually did. Nobody knew they were going to win those Senate seats in Georgia. A lot of people thought they were going to lose the Senate entirely, but they did that campaign of $2,000 checks. If you vote for Warnock and the Reverend, you'll get the checks. Of course, we know what happened with that. 2,000 went to 1,400, and here we are, right? But they did get the edge in the Senate, of course, with the vote from the vice president, but it's their reason that they're where they are, okay? So it's difficult for legislation to get passed. If they filibuster, it makes it damn near impossible. So you need to change the filibuster to make it to where, okay, if you actually want to stop this, you need to be dedicated to do it. You know what I mean? Instead of just declaring, oh, I'm filibustering and now it requires 60 votes. So if they actually do that, then we can actually have a slither of hope that some kind of progressive legislation will pass. okay? Because, I mean, before this, there was no hope, especially with Joe Manchin saying what he said, okay? So the push from the people that wanted to abolish it, of course, Joe Biden is against abolishing it, paired with the Republicans being immovable, has seemingly put the Democrats in a spot to actually do something for once. And Chuck Schumer actually was on Stephen Colbert, and he was asked about the Republicans not supporting anything and about reforming or abolishing the filibuster, doing something. And he responded, he basically echoed the same sentiments. You know, something has to be done. And I want to touch on, and he actually said the same thing that Joe Biden just said. He said that, you know, my Republican colleagues, you know, we want them involved. We want to reach out to them. We want to get them involved. They're never going to realize that this isn't going to happen. I just don't know what'll get them to understand that those guys are too far gone. And maybe it's because they're corporatists as well. I mean, they're all corporatists, you know what I mean? But in that interview that you saw with Joe Biden, I can't think of that guy's name, but he asked him, you know, well, the Republicans, they haven't had this epiphany that you said that they were going to have. And Joe Biden responds, you know, callously, like, well, I've only been here 6 weeks, pal. What kind of excuse is that? You've been in the White House for 6 weeks. You've been in Congress for over 40 years, Joe. You know how the Republicans are and how they operate. They've been the same Republicans for a very long time now. For a while, they've been the same. So I don't know. Look, they're friends with a lot of those guys, but those guys, the Republicans, I mean, don't care about their policies. They're not going to vote for your policies. So this constant, well, we'll reach out to them first, and if they don't, no. Just full steam ahead. Full steam ahead. Push your agenda relentlessly, because the Democratic ideas are the more popular ideas, and Joe Biden's approval rating is sitting pretty high right now. I think it's around like 58%. You know, it dropped from over 60, but it's still at 58%, which is relatively high for a sitting president. So they need to take advantage of the moment and pass the popular legislation that they can. And maybe, just maybe, the future may look bright for them in 2022. But we'll just have to wait and see.